Have you ever thought you got the job during the interview but then got ghosted? Had an interview today at a different department in the same company. I'll have to admit I have made some dumbass moves that kind of make me a not-so-ideal applicant. For example, I spent a year at one department that was great but for no reason laterally transferred to another that I instantly regretted and hated. Been there for a year so far, but this job and others I've applied for is a promotional transfer, new title and more pay. However, the interviewers made it seem like I was a great candidate, were very interested in my answers and experience, even explained what steps would happen if I got the job in detail, like what stuff I'd be taking home from my office and flex time, and asked me what other departments I applied to and if I will need to give my current one more than 2 weeks' notice. Never assume you got the job no matter how good you feel after an interview. I always set my expectations low and pretend that I didn't get the job. That way, if I end up getting an offer letter, it is a surprise. If I get rejected, then it is fine because I didn't have high expectations anyway, and it is easier to move on. I get this. I got an offer. Been in contact. Sent off paperwork, but until my name is in the contract, I haven't got it. It is maddening as I want to give formal notice to my employer until then, but they don't have respect for the notice period at this new one. I even have them extra week explaining the situation and they just pushed everything back a week rather than doing it earlier. Agreed. Plus, sometimes they might see a candidate they like better after you. This happened to me once for a job working for a theater company and I was gutted. Agreed, except for me, it is not so much low expectations, but more so I know the employer fluffs every candidate and tells him/her what they want to hear to be polite during the cutthroat hiring process. So when an employer walks me out and says we definitely like your skills and background and we'll be in touch, I'm already thinking you. Sure, whatever, and I'm itching to get home and send out my next 5 resumes. Anonymous Bell in Essex, 18 hours ago. I do the same thing. I don't ever set any sort of expectation. I've had too many times where I thought I nailed it, but got rejected. I've also thought I screwed up, but then got surprised with an offer letter. Hope for the best, but expect the worst. 41 reply share report save several times in the last couple of months, and it is maddening. Not just that, but recruiters who flake out and disappear. No updates, no rejection notices, just nothing. Tell me about it. Our company has a recruiter for each department, and the one handling the old one I used to be in refuses to even forward them my resume. Since 21 hours ago. Edited 16 hours ago. Just like dating. 44 reply share report save. It happened to me, praising me for how good of a candidate I was, what I will be working on, with who, etc. He then 1 week later received an email on a late Friday night stating they were pursuing another candidate. Felt like shit for a while. Yeah. I feel with the labor pool so saturated now, they sort of play the maybe we can find someone a little better game. I don't believe in anything but the offer letter coming through in my email, and even then I'm like, leave me see until the first day of work. Taco truck revolution 1 day ago. Yeah, I've literally gotten job offers only to never hear anything again. 41 reply share report save. I've gone as far as meeting and interviewing with the daughter of the CEO, then with the CEO himself. Have him tell me I'm going to be a great addition only to be ghosted. All of us have had this experience. The first job where I applied to, they had several rounds and they told me not to apply anywhere else because there's a very high chance that I'll make it to the second round. They promised to call me in 2 weeks. It was back in 2013. I'm still waiting for the call, because when I called no one answered and my emails were ignored. Reminate but 1 day. Agonate mole hamster. Finder 15 days on 18 feet. Yes, that happened once to me. And a year later I was at the company, worked in social work, and had clients at this other agency, and the program director saw me, remembered me, and asked me into her office. She said they had a job opening and asked if I was interested. Interviewed and got the job the next day. So weird. I think a lot of people interviewing just make it look like you were getting the job just to make the interview more pleasant. I had this experience the other day with an interview and I didn't end up getting the job. And I did unless they flat out tell you you were hired, always be skeptical at first. Yup. I think it's their way of being nice. I'd rather they tell me straight up a week later than stringing me along for a month. I think also talking to my friend who's on hiring committees, they have to really fight for new hires because companies are trying to cut. Yes. They said her will call you in the next few days to set up the second interview. They never called. I called 3 times in the span of a month to ask about a second interview, and they kept saying they would call me back. If they had no intention of giving me a second interview, they should have told me at the end of the first. If they could not do that, a template email or brief call explaining they chose someone else would have been greatly appreciated. So sick of taking the time and effort to interview and then being ghosted after. You don't have the job until you actually start on the first day. I've been a contractor for some time and have dealt with recruiters and internal hiring managers extensively. Every single one is different, and trying to read the room is often impossible. If you don't get the job, you could reach out and ask, what can I do to better position myself for this role if it is open in the future? Sometimes they'll tell you. More often than not, they want. The best career financial progressions come from obtaining next-level roles at another company. Period. End of story. To 101 day ago, this is good advice. Thank you. 44 reply share report save. I thought I was a shoo-in just last week. The job had gotten buried under a bunch of listings, so there were only 4 applicants. I had experience in exactly the job they were looking for. I interviewed great, and I went to the same university as the hiring manager, and we hit it off well for that. Then I got the email a few days ago. The hiring pool this cycle was extremely competitive, and I'm thinking to myself, this is an entry-level job that I already have a year of experience for, and there were only 4 applicants. I applied for a lateral move last year. My coworker assumed I was a shoo-in. We are sister departments and I have the certification they were looking for and get along with everyone in that depth. Well, their hiring manager didn't really understand my background and I ended up getting the overqualified and would leave excuse. I was not surprised, because not everyone understands my background, and I realized that she may have seen me as a threat to her position. My coworker was shocked I did not get the position. I would have taken and stayed at that job because I really liked the people in that depth and then regretted not having dumbed down my resume. Things have gotten so bad in my depth, I am ready to just quit. I have a really toxic manager, and our division, totally separate from our sister depth, is well known to be toxic. I am annoyed. I would have been a great asset to their department, but whatever. Yes, my feelings are hurt, but I think that ultimately their manager made the choice, and I haven't held that against those in that depth who I still get along with just fine. Had a second interview a day after the first. Was told they'd contact me for a third. They never did. Unprofessional. Oh well. They were a plumbing company that overcharged ignorant people. I got to the offer stage after months of waiting only for them to cancel, because they couldn't agree on the contract wording for my position. I don't celebrate unless it's officially inked in from my experience. Me. Gave an interview last week. They said they will reply back in next week with something. I answered everything and were super impressed. No calls yet. My current job, actually, I thought I was ghosted. Called a weekend after the internet and they said they would call me if I got the job. 2 weeks later, they asked me to come in for orientation. I went in, but it was weird not hearing about anything from the job for 2 weeks. I just kept searching and praying, asking my great-grandma for help in praying as well. I dunno if God spanked the hell out of them making me wait so long or if it was just coincidence, but either way it was quite annoying. But don't take being ghosted as being rejected or being hired. Possible busy, but I always recommend a week after the interview calling to see how the applicant process was going. And if they needed anything else, it shows them you were interested. Shows them you were not backing down. Lastly, if worded correctly, will make it sound like you were just asking a good question and not pestering them for hiring, although you kind of are. But don't ever sit around waiting for the job you just applied for. Keep applying. Keep submitting applications. Even if you have a job, keep looking for another job. Always be looking for the one job you want to have and love to work at. Happened to me twice. But the way I see it, it was no loss to me. It was a blessing in disguise. Why would I want to work for a shifty company that doesn't show care for my needs from the prequel to day one lol? Yeah, I know. Like I'm not gonna be happy there nor feel stable. Dodgy managers like that who are constantly forgetful aren't good to work under. But sometimes a job is a job. Anyone else feel like they simply aren't as dedicated and hard-working as they were expected to be in even the most entry-level roles? I know the knee-jerk response is life's tough mate. Grow a pair and work hard if you want to succeed, but man, reading job descriptions almost gives me an anxiety attack. Must be willing to sacrifice any and all leisure time Monday, Friday, and most likely sat sun with incidental work. Must have inhuman multitasking abilities. Must never show any signs of burnout or hesitation or indifference. Must be willing to answer work calls at 30 am. Must have 15 years of experience in a senior management position. Must have unparalleled social and comedic skills and be able to entertain the entire workplace. Must enjoy long commutes in horrendous traffic. Must have in an unrelated field. You must really want this job and be willing to have a death match with other applicants. For it hesitantly click submit. Thank you for applying for the position of entry-level call center assistant. Closes laptop and stares into the distance for half an hour. I know they always oversell jobs, but I'm honestly starting to feel like I'm just not dedicated enough. I value my stress-free personal time too much. In fact, I don't actually understand how anyone is as motivated and hard-working as those which employers appear to be looking for. I don't want to be a shit-kicker in a menial job all my life, but I'm sort of coming to terms with the fact that I'm just not as hard of a worker as a lot of people are. I interviewed for a job like this. It was a receptionist position. During the interview, the managers were like, "Sometimes you will have to deal with many departments. Can you handle it, etc." I was actually scared, but got the job. The job was so unbelievably easy that I literally just watched Netflix on the clock for like 7 hours a day. This reminds me of a job I was applying for once. They told me as part of the interviewing process I'd have to pass an Excel assessment and to prepare for it. So leading up to the interview, I'm getting lessons from my mom every night. She is an accountant. The assessment was literally data entry. I had to transfer information from a Word doc to the matching Excel columns. I thought I was getting punked. Haha, yeah. I get that they were going to set the bar high, not low. In fact, the one job I had where the bar was low turned out to be the most fucked one because they added a bunch of shit to my plate that wasn't even in the job description, mainly because Big Daddy manager wanted to go have company-funded wine dates with some obsequious bitches from her and offloaded his crap to me, and I had to eat it with a smile. Anyhow, it is a balance between being stimulated but not stressed, isn't it? Could you go into detail if you don't mind? Is this like a front desk clerk type of position? That sounds like the dream lol. I'm also interested in what kind of job this was. Would like a similar one. Job post descriptions are generally a wish list sort of thing. Or at least they were meant to. Just make sure the money feels worth the commitment throughout the interviewing process. I remember someone saying that if you think you actually meet 50 of the criteria, you should apply for it anyway. I just hate feeling like I'm not qualified for a role, but if I waited for roles where I tick 100, I wouldn't apply for anything. Money isn't a huge motivator for me, as long as it is enough for me to live comfortably enough. It is more that I do not want a job where I have to bring stress home with me. But it seems like in modern life those jobs are becoming increasingly rare. It's maddening though. like grade inflation, where suddenly a means nothing because everyone is getting as. I want to actually learn something from the job description. Some jobs are more time demanding than others. I want to know that before wasting my time. Psycho 19 hours ago we say that, but I do see Atch. It is all a sham. Everyone pretends to be much more enthusiastic about the job until they get it, and actual performance is not like that. I'm older and physically and mentally burnt out. 51 is pushing it for me. Jobs are ridiculous now. Everyone is expected to work like a robot with no life because places don't want to spend money on hiring enough people. Applying for jobs makes me depressed, especially when they whip out the old psychometric testing. I honestly feel like the way we allocate work and people is ridiculously inefficient. As someone who has always gone above and beyond her role and duties, I am done. I've been working post-university for under 2 years now, and I've come to this realization. I am 3 years into my professional career, and in the same boat. I've had a lot of jobs sell themselves this way, but I've never had this experience in the position itself. I know I'm a hard worker, but I still wince when I see job posts like the one you described. I'm not a hard worker, but I am efficient, aka lazy. Interviewers not respecting potential hires. Since the beginning of the pandemic, I have been a stay-at-home father. I have been trying to find work since last year, and only recently have I been receiving responses to my applications. However, almost every interview I have had, which I will admit is not many, I have had an interviewer either outright be rude, or do so with some slick passive-aggressive comment, and I cannot fathom for the life of me what the end game to that is. 2 recent interviews that stick out to me are both within the last week. I had a company call me about a position I applied to, and I was unable to take the call at the moment. Within minutes of the missed call, I received an email stating that the position was filled and I would not longer be considered for hire. Roughly 20 minutes after that email, I received another email from the same company asking me to complete a 15-minute assessment to continue with the hiring process. So when I was able to return their call, I brought these emails up to the manager I was speaking with. She claimed that the emails are automatically generated with there is no initial contact made, and then immediately in the next sentence tells me that she remembers sending them. When discussing the hours of the position, the information on the job listing differed greatly from the information she was giving me. When I explained the time conflict, she first said, well, the hours were listed on the job posting, which you clearly didn't read. When I explained that I was looking at the job listing and reading verbatim what it had posted for hours, she then proceeded to say, well, regardless of the hours posted, these are the hours you need to be available. I explained that those hours were not suitable, to which she gave me a short well up then and hung up. The second one was literally this morning. They contacted me at 8 a.m. about my resume, said they loved it and wanted to set up an interview ASAP. Set it up for an hour later, got there and met with 2 managers in an office. They asked about my work history, asked me about myself, and then started in about the position. When the hours for the position were brought up, I asked if there was a wiggle on the starting time. I explained that I have 3 kids at home, one being a toddler, and that my wife works 3rd shift and doesn't get home until roughly an hour after the start time they mentioned. They explained that the hours aren't even exact and that it is more like 7 to 7 or sometimes 6 to 8 when they were super busy. I explained that the length of the hours aren't my issue, it is my availability for that start time.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.